Taxation. Let's talk about that. Mukesh Bhutani, Chairman at BMR Advisors, Delhi joins in, and we also have with us Ketan Dalal, Joint Tax Leader at PwC India. Ketan, let me start off with you first. The Finance Bill has proposed to insert a subsection which implies that the production of tax residency certificate or TRC will be necessary but not a sufficient condition for investors seeking the benefit of DTA. How do you read into this?
Aisha, as Nikunj mentioned, the Finance Minister has clarified this yesterday. What we need to do is to, and it's a bit technical, but I'll try and make it simpler to understand. The concern, of course, of the market is vis-a-vis Mauritius. But first, let's step back. Last year, which is in 2012, a condition was inserted for a tax residency certificate to claim a treaty benefit. Now, in most of the treaties, and especially in the clause relating to royalties, fees for technical services and interest, there are two conditions. One is that the entity claiming the benefit must be a tax resident, and the second is that the entity receiving the royalties, fees for technical service or interest must be a beneficial owner of the royalty, fees for technical service or interest. So what happened is, and the Finance Minister and Dr. Shom also clarified, that the condition was inserted to clarify the twin requirements of A, tax residency, and B, beneficial ownership, with the second part having come yesterday. Now, coming to the Mauritius Treaty, there, as you know, as your viewers will know, Mauritius is governed by a circular number 789 of 2000 in relation to an article called Article 13 of the India-Mauritius Treaty. 2 points there. One, the capital gains clause does not have a beneficial ownership concept at all. However, in spite of that, the circular, and I have it in front of me just now, it actually says that it is hereby clarified that when a certificate of residence is issued by the Mauritian authorities, such certificate will constitute sufficient evidence for accepting the status of residence as well as beneficial ownership. The second one was not even required, but they still went ahead. So I think net-net, I think the amendment yesterday proposed in the finance bill does not impact the Mauritius route, unless of course the circular is withdrawn.
Mukesh, I beg your pardon, if the circular does not affect the Mauritius route, then what is this hoo-ha all about?
Well, I think it could be a little bit reaction on my part to express any point of view, because the market, as you know, is extremely sensitive to this news. Ketan has explained the technical position and I need not repeat. All I would say is that let's wait for clarification from the Finance Minister and let's see what that clarification suggests. But I think a larger point still remains, and this is more in defense of the overreaction that the market had, was that this particular clause, that a TRC is required but not sufficient, was there even in last year's budget, except that in last year's budget it got inserted in the supplementary documents, which is a statement of objects, and not in the law itself. This year he has brought it in the law. Now the market may be confused because pursuant to last year's finance bill, the GAR guidelines were announced, then the GAR committee specifically looked into these aspects. The recommendations of the GAR committee were accepted, in my view, pretty much in its entirety, except this particular aspect, which is a circular that governs the benefit under the India-Mauritius Treaty. Now, whether that is deliberate or that is a slippage is something that only the Finance Minister can clarify. Assuming that it is deliberate, then I think this confusion has arisen only because that part of the GAR recommendations have not been accepted. But even otherwise, we will have to still wait for the final shape of GAR guidelines to come in. Now, GAR has been legislated, its implementation has been deferred. So I think what the market is reading it is this in any manner a preponing of GAR insofar as the India-Mauritius Treaty is concerned. That's the only aspect which is unnerving the market. And I think that given the sensitivity of the issue, it will make sense for everyone to wait for the clarification from the Ministry of Finance to ensure that this aspect has been addressed.
Right,
so I think the market is getting nervous because they feel that India-Mauritius treaty is being questioned and CAR is being preponed, at least it's insofar as this part of the law is concerned, which says a domestic law under certain circumstances can override the treaty.
Section should be read as tightening of KYC norms for foreign investors as the shade of money is getting murkier. Would you agree with that?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Right. I was just talking about as to how, some are saying that this subsection should be read as tightening of KYC norms for foreign investors as the shade of money is now getting murkier. Would you read into this move as that?
I would give the benefit of doubt to the Ministry of Finance, because if there is anything, you see, at the end of the day, if there is any economic offense that is getting conducted, whether it be by way of round tripping or the color of the money is questionable, there is adequate safeguards in the treaty that you have with respect to India strengthening the exchange of information clause. So India is well within its right to seek information from Mauritius to look into these aspects. Now, is India now trying to have something in the domestic law which gives a right to the taxman to question and get into the beneficial ownership is the question mark. And I think if this provision is being brought in the domestic law with a view only to deal with the aspect where what is under question is the source of funds or any other larger offense that is being committed, say by way of round tripping, then I think the government is well within its right to do that.
Ketan, so to your mind, what is the most important clarification which is now required from the Finance Minister, or for that matter from the Finance Ministry?
Yes, Nikunj, as I said, and I explained that in great detail. The capital gain clause of the India-Mauritius Treaty, and that is actually the thing which is spooking the markets, the capital gain clause does not even contain the concept of beneficial ownership. And I think the Finance Minister and Dr. Shom impliedly clarified that the amendment yesterday is something which has to do with royalties, interest and fees for technical services. However, I think a reaffirmation of that in express words is what is required. I think the position is already that, but a reaffirmation in express terms I think will be required, because obviously markets, investors, nobody likes uncertainty and a situation where things are in animated suspension, so to speak. So I think an express clarification is what I would say.
Okay, Mukesh, I'm just going to change gears now and talk about local issues. GST, what is your understanding? Whatever communication which has come in the budget speech yesterday, it appears to me that a baby step has been taken, but a baby step has been taken in the right direction.
Well, I would agree with that. Yesterday you would have heard that the Finance Minister was sounding very confident on the passage of DTC in 14, but actually even before 14, because he's tabling the bill in the Parliament in this session itself. He said that insofar as GST is concerned, it is not within my control. Now, there are several elements to the GST. One element has got to do with the amendment to the Constitution Bill. The other has got to do with back-end work that's happening with respect to negotiations with the Empowered Committee. I think he seems to have made progress on that front by providing a 9,000, 10,000 crore allocation to meet the shortfall in CST collections at the state level. He's essentially thrown the ball in the court of the states. So if you go back 3 weeks back, the statement that was made by Sushil Modi, the chairman of the Empowered Committee, he said that we are coming close to an understanding, and I think the most important aspect is when will the state get reimbursed for the CST that they have lost out. Now that, by providing, what the Finance Minister has done, he has now said, before you take this money, are you now in principle agreeing to support the GST amendment bill? So I think that's a very interesting development. Having said that, I would have thought that he could have signaled another important step forward by reducing the rate of CST from 2% to 1%, which he obviously did not do. And I think what would be driving him not to carry out that change would be purely revenue considerations, because the budget has been extremely tight given the fact that he has to manage the fiscal deficit, and then he could have shown only so much as increase in the revenues for next year. So if he had provided for a reduction in the CST, then it could have been hurting him elsewhere insofar as revenue is concerned. But I think all in all, it sounds to me that it's a very positive move towards the GST. And I think if the states bite the bait of the compensation that he has offered, you could very well see paving the passage of the GST amendment bill in the monsoon or the winter session of the Parliament to make it a reality from the next fiscal year.
Okay, gentlemen, really appreciate your time and thank you for your insights. I guess the clarification is very important, and that is what markets are waiting for. Experts have really outlined the concerns, but the clarification is important. And my sense is if you get a clarification in the next 24 hours, that really could be a big mood changer. Will it be a trend changer? I don't know. Will it be a mood changer? Well, the answer is yes.